5 years ago, the most powerful tech executives on the entire planet sat in front of the cameras and the media and confidently told us that the fundamental nature of reality was going to change. We were promised a revolutionary like digital utopia, a fully immersive virtual universe where billions of people could seamlessly work, socialize, and also just exist entirely inside of VR headsets. The biggest corporations on Earth really like changed their names, for example, Facebook and Meta, but they also abandoned their core products and completely restructured their entire like business models to violently like force this unproven concept onto the global public. They called it the metaverse, and they demanded us that we all buy in or get left behind in the physical real world. Fast forward to today though, the end of March 2026, and that $1 trillion corporate dream has pretty much like collapsed for the most part. The metaverse is officially dead, and the tech monopolies that try to force us to use it are desperately scrambling to hide the bodies. So over the last 48 hours, the digital landscape on the internet has experienced a pretty big shift. So for example, Rec Room, a pretty pioneering virtual reality platform that existed for around 10 years and hosted a lot of players, I think like 150 million, like abruptly announced that they're permanently shutting down their servers this June, which is pretty crazy. But they're shutting down because the virtual economy is entirely unsustainable. But the absolute final nail in the coffin came directly from the absolute emperor of the metaverse himself, Mark Zuckerberg. So in a massive yet quiet surrender, Meta officially announced they're completely pulling the virtual reality version of Horizon Worlds off the Quest headset store. The flagship application that was supposed to redefine human interaction has pretty much been reduced to a forgotten app. We are currently witnessing the whole destruction of the corporate virtual reality dream, and but also the financial devastation left in its wake, and it's unlike anything the tech industry has ever seen in my opinion. To truly comprehend what's actually going on here and the sheer failure that we are seeing right now, we have to look back at the whole terrifying financial bloodbath which is happening behind closed doors at Meta's Reality Labs. So when Mark Zuckerberg officially rebranded Facebook to Meta in the fall of 2021, he essentially wrote a blank check to his virtual reality division, utterly convinced that he was building, you could say, the absolute infrastructure of the next internet. And over the past 5 years, Reality Labs has operated with an unprecedented, almost unfathomable level of financial immunity. The numbers are simply insane. They almost lose their meaning to a normal human being. So since 2020, Meta has burned through over $83 billion just trying to force the metaverse into actual existence. Let that number, just think about that number. $83 billion of pure operating losses pretty much. In 2025, the division alone posted an operating loss of over $19 billion, while only generating a pathetic $2 billion in actual revenue. They were literally setting mountains of cash on fire to build empty, soulless corporate lobbies and legless avatars that absolutely nobody wanted to actually use. So internal metrics consistently showed that even the people working on Meta refused to actually log into their own virtual platform because the experience was so bad and miserable. But instead of listening to actual people who explicitly said that for years that this whole hyper corporate sterile version of virtual reality was completely undesirable, Meta just kept doubling down. Meta arrogantly believed that if they simply spent enough billions, they could artificially manufacture a cultural phenomenon. But now reality has caught up to Reality Labs. They have systematically laid off thousands of employees, permanently shuttering multiple in-house virtual reality game studios as well, and abandoned the enterprise hardware market. The $83 billion fire has finally been sniffed out, leaving nothing but broken promises and a completely fractured corporate identity. The absolute hypocrisy of this entire collapse is how aggressively and shamelessly the tech industry is just pivoting to the next massive buzzword. The exact same executives and industry analysts who spent the last years lecturing the public and investors about how the metaverse was the unavoidable future of human commerce are now awkwardly pretending it never happened. Like the absolute second that the advanced like artificial intelligence has entered the market and the mainstream consciousness, pretty much the executives in Silicon Valley immediately they dropped their bulky like VR headsets and ran towards the new big thing. Like Meta is now desperately trying to rewrite its own history, publicly stating that their massive investments were actually just early stepping stones towards integrating, cerebral intelligence and AI into daily life. They're stripping the budget from their virtual world developers and instead, desperately trying to build an artificial intelligence infrastructure just to, appease their terrified shareholders. Like the metaverse, like it wasn't defeated by like a lack of technological capability. Like the technology was there, but it was instead abandoned because it just never actually was about building a cool immersive experience for the average consumer. Like it was always a desperate manufactured stock market play designed to secure dominance over the next computing platform. Like when the tech giants, realized that the everyday consumer pretty much like didn't want like, to actually use a heavy like, VR headset to their face all the time just to attend a virtual corporate board meeting, they instantly pulled the plug. Like it completely exposes pretty much like the reality of Silicon Valley right now. These companies do not innovate based on passion or community feedback. They, blindly chase whatever artificial trend promises the highest immediate return on investment, completely regardless of the billions of dollars wasted or the thousands of passionate developers who end up just losing their jobs when the corporate pendulum, you could say, inevitably swings in the opposite direction. So while the executives are desperately trying to sweep the whole $83 billion, failure underneath the rug, the real-world consequences of the extreme corporate negligence are finally coming back to haunt them in like the courtroom. Like you cannot run a massive social monopoly, completely ignore the safety of your own users to chase like a virtual reality pipe dream and expect to actually survive like, the legal fallout. Massive landmark lawsuits are successfully like, striking the core foundation of these companies. Juries in various states like California and New Mexico, I believe, are the two big ones. They're currently handing down devastating verdicts against tech giants like Meta and Google, officially holding them like legally liable for intentionally designing their algorithms to actually like addict and psychologically harm the youngest generation of internet users. So for many years, these companies, diverted their absolute best engineers, tons of resources, and also billions of bucks away from platform safety and content moderation, strictly so that they could actually fund their desperate virtual reality ambitions. But they allowed the foundational social media platforms to actually degrade into, toxic, like weaponized like engagement traps, purely to generate that sweet, sweet ad revenue to fund, Mark Zuckerberg's virtual obsession. But the courts are definitely waking up to what's been going on and they're striking down. These corporations are now facing potentially billions in actual damages, not because of like the metaverse itself, but instead because of the massive like societal damage that they caused while they were distracted by the whole metaverse thing. Ultimately, the official death of the metaverse is a sign that the internet is still like vibrant and kicking. Like the executives of Meta and also venture capitalists, they thought that they could pretty much like build a sterilized corporate like world for us to live in virtually. But we said no, and like we rejected this whole sterile advertised field digital like lobbies, you could say. Like the graphics are absolutely terrible, and we made fun of them. And I think now like the payment has come. But yeah, it's kind of crazy though because the metaverse was kind of interesting in like the beginning. Like I actually found it kind of cool, but as time went on, I realized that like maybe we should go touch grass instead. So yeah, if you have anything to say, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time.